The notification sound had become so routine that I barely registered it anymore. My wife's phone sat on the kitchen counter, its screen illuminating with yet another message. I wasn't the snooping type. 23 years of marriage had been built on trust, or so I believed. But something about the way she'd been guarding her phone lately, the way she angled it away from me when texting, had planted a seed of doubt that grew with each passing day. It was a Thursday evening, and she was in the shower. The phone buzzed again, dancing slightly across the granite countertop. I glanced toward the bathroom, hearing the water still running, steam creeping out from under the door. My heart hammered as I reached for the device, my fingers trembling slightly. The preview on the lock screen made my blood run cold. Can't wait to see you tomorrow night. Same place? Evan. I set the phone down as if it had burned me, backing away from the counter. Evan. The name echoed in my mind. Who was Evan? I racked my brain, trying to remember if she'd ever mentioned anyone by that name. A colleague? An old friend? But the tone of that message, "Can't wait to see you," carried an intimacy that made my stomach churn. The shower turned off, and I forced myself to move, to appear normal. I opened the refrigerator, staring blankly at its contents, not seeing anything. My mind was racing, replaying the last few months. The late nights at the office. The new lingerie I'd found in her drawer, tag still on, that she'd never worn around me. The way she'd started going to the gym at odd hours. The distance I'd felt growing between us, which I'd attributed to the natural ebb and flow of a long marriage. She emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel, her hair wet and cascading over her shoulders. She looked beautiful, just as she had when we first met at that college football game so many years ago. How had we gotten here? She smiled at me, but it didn't reach her eyes. "What's for dinner?" she asked casually, picking up her phone. I watched her expression change subtly as she read the message, her fingers flying across the screen in response. "I was thinking we could order something," I managed to say, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. "Chinese maybe." "Actually, I'm not very hungry," she replied, still focused on her phone. "I had a late lunch." Another lie, I realized. She'd told me this morning she had back-to-back meetings through lunch. The small deceptions were suddenly glaring, like puzzle pieces finally showing their picture. I felt physically sick. Over the next few days, I did something I never thought I would do. I paid attention. Really paid attention. I noted the time she texted, the way her face lit up when certain notifications came through. I listened to her phone conversations, hearing her step outside or into another room when certain calls came. I checked our phone records online and saw a number that appeared repeatedly, at all hours, sometimes for just a few minutes, sometimes for much longer. On Tuesday, I called that number from my office, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst from my chest. A man answered. "Hey beautiful, calling from the office." His voice was smooth, confident, younger than mine. I hung up without saying a word, my hands shaking. The confirmation I'd been dreading washed over me like ice water. This wasn't innocent. This wasn't my imagination. My wife was having an affair. That night, I said nothing. I watched her across the dinner table, this woman I'd built a life with, who'd given me 2 beautiful children, now grown and off living their own lives. I watched her lie to my face about where she'd been, who she'd been with. And I began to plan. I wasn't going to confront her in anger. I wasn't going to give her the chance to gaslight me or manipulate the narrative. I was going to be smart about this. I was going to find out everything, and then I was going to let her expose herself. Friday morning arrived with deceptive normalcy. My wife hummed while making coffee, and I pretended to read the news on my tablet. The domestic scene would have been peaceful if not for the storm brewing beneath the surface. I'd barely slept, spending most of the night staring at the ceiling, running through scenarios and possibilities. But I kept my face neutral, my voice steady. "Big plans for tonight?" I asked casually, taking a sip of my coffee. She glanced at me, and I caught something flash across her face. Was it guilt? "Oh, probably just catching up on some work. We're behind on the quarterly reports. I might be late." There it was. The setup. I nodded sympathetically. "You work too hard, Don't burn yourself out." Says the man who spent 30 years climbing the corporate ladder. She replied with a smile that once would have warmed me but now felt like a knife twisting. She kissed my cheek before leaving for work, and I had to resist the urge to pull away. The moment her car disappeared down the street, I was on my laptop. I'd already installed tracking software on her phone earlier in the week, something I'd felt guilty about initially, but that guilt had evaporated with each new discovery. The app showed me everything: her location, her messages, even her deleted texts. Technology had made infidelity easier, but it had also made getting caught much simpler. I spent the day gathering evidence. Screenshots of messages between her and Evan, showing a relationship that had been going on for at least 8 months. Romantic messages, explicit messages, plans for their dates. Each one felt like a physical blow, but I forced myself to document everything. I noted the restaurant they frequented, an upscale Italian place 2 towns over where we wouldn't be recognized. I found hotel receipts buried in her email spam folder where she'd hidden them. But the most interesting discovery came from a reverse phone lookup. Evan wasn't just some random affair partner. He had a wife. A family. I found his social media profiles, saw pictures of him with an elegant woman and 2 young children. He was living the same double life my wife was, and his wife was as clueless as I had been. I made a decision then that might have been driven by anger or a sense of justice, probably both. I found his wife's contact information through their shared family profiles. Her name was Jennifer. She deserved to know, just as I deserved to know. But more than that, I realized she could be part of my plan to expose this betrayal in a way that left no room for denial or manipulation. I drafted a careful message to Jennifer, explaining who I was and what I'd discovered. I included just enough evidence to be credible without overwhelming her. Then I waited, my finger hovering over the send button. Was I really going to do this? Was I ready for the explosion that would follow? Yes. Yes, I was. Her response came within an hour. Shock, disbelief, anger, all conveyed in shaking text. But also gratitude that I'd reached out, and a steely determination to confront this together. We spoke on the phone, 2 strangers brought together by the betrayal of our spouses. We made a plan. That evening, I watched my wife get ready with particular care. New dress, carefully applied makeup, the perfume I'd bought her for Christmas used for another man. "I'll probably be really late tonight," she said, checking her appearance one more time in the mirror. "Don't wait up." There it was. Her standard line for affair nights, as I now knew. In the past, I would have kissed her goodbye, told her I loved her, and settled in for a quiet evening alone. But tonight was different. Tonight, everything would change. "Okay," I said simply, watching her grab her purse and keys. She was almost to the door when I spoke again, my voice calm and measured. "Hey, tell Evan I said hi." The effect was instantaneous and devastating. My wife froze mid-step, her hand still on the doorknob. The color drained from her face so rapidly I thought she might faint. She turned slowly, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air, unable to form words. In that moment of stunned silence, I saw everything I needed to see: the guilt, the panic, the desperate scrambling behind her eyes as she tried to construct a plausible explanation. What did you say?" Her voice cracked, barely above a whisper. "I said, tell Evan I said hi." I kept my tone conversational, almost pleasant, though my heart was hammering against my ribs. "You are meeting Evan tonight, aren't you? Or did you have a different excuse prepared?" I don't know what you're talking about." But even as she spoke, her hands were shaking, her carefully applied makeup unable to hide the fear creeping across her features. "Don't." The single word came out harder than I intended. "Don't insult me by lying to my face anymore. I know everything. I've known for days. The question is, are you going to continue this charade, or are you going to be honest with me for the first time in 8 months? She stumbled backward, catching herself against the wall. How did you? When did you? Does it matter? I stood up from the couch, and she actually flinched. In 23 years, I'd never raised a hand to her, never given her reason to fear me physically, but the emotional devastation I was unleashing was perhaps more frightening. What matters is that you've been carrying on an affair, lying to me day after day, planning your evening with him while kissing me goodbye. What matters is that the woman I trusted completely, the woman I built my entire adult life around, has been living a double life. Let me explain. Explain what? Explain how you accidentally fell into bed with someone else? Explain how you accidentally developed feelings for him? Explain how every late night at work was actually time spent with your lover? My voice was rising now, the carefully maintained calm cracking. Please, enlighten me. I'm dying to hear what possible explanation justifies 8 months of deception. She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. I never meant for it to happen. It started so innocently. He was kind and attentive, and I felt seen again. We hadn't been connecting, you and I, and so this is my fault. The laugh that escaped me was bitter. I'm responsible for your affair because what? I didn't pay enough attention to you. I worked hard to provide for our family. I wasn't exciting enough. No, that's not what I'm saying. She took a step toward me, hands outstretched, but I moved back. I'm saying I was weak. I was stupid. I made a terrible mistake, and I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but please, we can work through this. It's over with him, I swear. It's already over. Is it? Because according to the messages I saw this morning, you two were very much looking forward to tonight. I pulled out my phone, scrolling to the screenshots I'd saved. Should I read them aloud? Can't stop thinking about last week. Tonight, let's not hold back. That was from yesterday. Or how about this one? My husband suspects nothing. We're safe. That was from 3 days ago. Which part of that sounds like it's over? Her face crumpled completely. She sank to the floor, her back against the wall, sobbing. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, please, we can fix this. I'll do anything. Counseling. Whatever you want. Just don't throw away 23 years. I'm not throwing anything away, I said quietly, and something in my tone made her look up, fear replacing desperation in her eyes. You already threw it away. You threw it away the first time you met him. You threw it away every time you lied to my face. You threw it away when you chose him over the vows we made. What are you saying? I'm saying you have a choice to make right now. You can stay here, you can face what you've done, and we can figure out what happens next. Or you can leave, you can actually go meet Evan tonight, confirm everything I already know. But if you walk out that door, if you choose to keep this appointment, don't bother coming back. She stared at me, tears streaming down her face. That's not fair. You can't give me an ultimatum like this. Fair. The word tasted like poison. You want to talk about fair? Was it fair when you shared with him the intimacy that should have been mine? Was it fair when you spent our money on hotel rooms? Was it fair when you came home from him and climbed into bed with me? She buried her face in her hands. What do you want from me? I want you to choose. Right here, right now. Me or him. I glanced at my watch deliberately. You're going to be late for your date. He's probably already at the restaurant, wondering where you are. Your phone has been buzzing in your purse for the last 5 minutes. I assume that's him. As if on cue, her phone rang audibly from her purse, the sound cutting through the tension like a knife. She looked at me, then at her purse, paralyzed by indecision. The ringing stopped, then started again almost immediately. He was persistent. I'd give him that. Answer it, I said, surprising her. Go ahead. Put it on speaker. Let's all have this conversation together. No, I can't. Answer the phone, or I will. I moved toward her purse, and she scrambled to reach it first, pulling out the device with shaking hands. The name Evan lit up the screen with a photo I recognized from his social media, him smiling at the camera, carefree and handsome. The kind of man who probably had always gotten what he wanted. She answered but didn't put it on speaker. Hello. Even from across the room, I could hear his irritation. Where are you? I've been waiting for 20 minutes. The reservation is under your name, remember? They're starting to give me looks." She glanced at me, her eyes pleading. I gestured for her to put it on speaker. When she hesitated, I pulled out my own phone meaningfully. She understood the unspoken threat and pressed the button. Something came up," she said, her voice barely steady. "What came up?" "We planned this 3 days ago. I've been looking forward to tonight all week." His voice was smooth, seductive, unaware of the audience. "Come on, baby, don't leave me hanging. I'm already imagining getting you out of that blue dress you mentioned." I closed my eyes briefly, the casual intimacy in his voice like salt in an open wound. My wife's face was scarlet with shame. "Evan, I can't make it tonight," she said, stronger this time. "Why not? Is it him? Did he suddenly decide to care about where you are?" The contempt in his voice when he referred to me was clear. "You said he wouldn't notice. You said he never pays attention anymore." "That's enough," I said loudly, taking a step closer. "This is her husband. The one who apparently doesn't pay attention. Hello, Evan." The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, "Who is this?" "I just told you. I'm the husband. The one you've been cuckolding for 8 months. Although I have to say, I'm disappointed. After all I've heard about you, I expected someone more impressive. I don't know what game you're playing." "No game. Just reality finally catching up. Tell me, does your wife know about your extracurricular activities? Does Jennifer know that instead of working late, you're sleeping with my wife?" Another silence, longer this time. When he spoke again, the smooth confidence was gone. Who told you?" "Nobody had to tell me. I'm not as oblivious as you both assumed. But since you asked about Jennifer, why don't you tell her yourself? She's on her way here right now." "What?" This time it was my wife who spoke, her eyes wide with horror. "What did you do?" "What I should have done the moment I found out. I contacted her. I showed her the evidence. And she's just as interested in having this conversation as I am." I checked my watch again. "Should be here in about 10 minutes, actually." "You had no right," Evan started, his voice rising with panic. "No right? No right." I laughed, harsh and cold. "You're sleeping with my wife, and I have no right to inform your wife? That's rich. By the way, she's bringing copies of all the evidence I sent her. Hotel receipts, restaurant charges, the works. I hope you have a good lawyer." The line went dead. He'd hung up, probably racing home to do damage control. But it was too late for that. Jennifer and I had been very thorough in our planning. She'd already photographed financial records, secured important documents, and consulted with an attorney. We'd both done our homework. My wife was staring at me like she didn't recognize me. "How could you involve her? This is between us." The moment you involved Evan, it stopped being just between us. The moment he made vows to someone else and broke them with you, it became her business too. Or do you think you and Evan were the only ones who mattered in this scenario? What about me? What about Jennifer? What about their kids? Their kids? She looked stricken. Yes, their kids. 2 of them. 7 and 9 years old. Did you even know that? Did you ask? Or were you too caught up in the excitement of being wanted by someone new? She opened her mouth to respond, but the doorbell rang. We both froze. She looked at me with pure panic. "Please," she whispered. "Please don't do this." "It's already done," I said, moving toward the door. "The question is, what are you going to do now?" I opened the door to find Jennifer standing there, and despite everything, I felt a pang of sympathy. She was dressed professionally, her posture rigid with barely controlled emotion. In one hand, she carried a folder, the evidence we'd compiled. In the other, her phone. Her eyes were red-rimmed but dry now, all tears spent in private. This was a woman ready for battle. "Thank you for coming," I said quietly, stepping aside to let her in. My wife had remained frozen in the entryway, and when she saw Jennifer, something in her seemed to break. Maybe it was the reality of another person's pain staring her in the face, or maybe it was the final understanding that this wasn't going to be swept under the rug or explained away. Jennifer's gaze locked onto my wife with laser intensity. You're her. Not a question. A statement of fact. You're the woman who's been sleeping with my husband. I didn't know he was married. My wife tried, but even to her ears, it must have sounded hollow. Don't. Jennifer's voice was ice. Don't insult me with lies. He's wearing a wedding ring in his profile pictures. You knew. You just didn't care. She stepped closer. Or did you think that somehow made it more exciting? That you were special enough to make him leave his family? Jennifer, my wife started, but Jennifer cut her off with a sharp gesture. No. You don't get to say my name. You don't get to humanize this. You don't get to make excuses. She opened the folder, pulling out printed messages. I've read everything. Every message. Every plan you two made. Every lie he told me while he was with you. Do you know what it's like to read texts from your husband to another woman, talking about how much better you are in bed? How much more alive he feels with you? My wife was crying again, but Jennifer showed no mercy. Neither did I. We'd both earned this moment of confrontation, this opportunity to face the people who'd shattered our lives. My children, Jennifer continued, her voice cracking for the first time. My babies asked me this morning why Daddy was sleeping on the couch. What was I supposed to tell them? That their father was too busy planning his next rendezvous with his mistress to care about them. I never wanted to hurt anyone, my wife sobbed. It just happened. Nothing just happens. I finally spoke, my voice thundering through the house. You made a choice. 1,000 choices. Every text, every meeting, every lie, those were choices. Own them. The four of us, though Evan was conspicuously absent, existed in this painful tableau for a long moment. Then Jennifer straightened her shoulders, her composure returning like armor sliding into place. I filed for divorce, she announced. My lawyer has everything. Evan came home 30 minutes ago, packed a bag, and left. I don't know where he went, and I don't care. He'll be served papers next week. She looked at me. I hope you'll consider filing as well. She doesn't deserve your forgiveness. I looked at my wife, seeing not the woman I'd married, but a stranger wearing her face. I already called a lawyer this afternoon. The papers will be ready Monday. My wife's legs seemed to give out, and she slid down the wall to the floor. No. No, please. We can fix this. Counseling, time, whatever it takes. There is no we anymore, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. That ended the first time you went to him. I'm not interested in counseling. I'm not interested in trying to rebuild trust that you systematically destroyed. I'm just done. But 23 years. Don't you dare use our years together as a shield now. You're the one who made them meaningless. You're the one who threw them away. I moved to the closet by the door, pulling out 2 large suitcases I'd packed earlier. Your things. I've packed 2 weeks' worth. You can arrange to get the rest later, with supervision. She stared at the suitcases as if they were alien objects. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know. Evan's place, maybe? Oh wait, he's married and just left his wife. Maybe a hotel? You certainly know which ones have the best rates by now. The bitterness in my voice was acid, eating away at the last vestiges of the love I'd once felt. Jennifer was already moving toward the door. I've said what I came to say. I hope you find peace, she said to me, then looked at my wife one last time. And I hope you learn to live with what you've done. Goodbye. After she left, the house fell into crushing silence. My wife remained on the floor, surrounded by the wreckage of her choices. I felt oddly empty, like all the anger and hurt had burned through me, leaving nothing but ash. I loved you, I said finally, and she looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. Past tense. I loved who I thought you were. The woman I married, who promised to forsake all others. But that woman doesn't exist anymore, if she ever did. I love you, she whispered. I still love you. No, you don't. You love the security I provided. You love the life we built. You love not having to face consequences. But you don't love me. If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. I picked up her car keys from the hall table and set them beside the suitcases. You need to go now. This is my house too. And your name will stay on the deed until the divorce is finalized. But I can't have you here tonight. I can't breathe with you in this space. So please, just go. Go anywhere. Figure out your next move. But give me this one night without you. She stood slowly, gathering the suitcases with trembling hands. At the door, she paused. I'm sorry. I know you don't believe me, but I'm truly, deeply sorry. I destroyed the best thing in my life. Yes, I agreed simply. You did. After she left, I stood in the empty house, the house we'd chosen together, where we'd raised our children, where we'd celebrated anniversaries and holidays and ordinary Tuesdays. But it didn't feel like our house anymore. It felt like a museum of a marriage that no longer existed. I poured myself a whiskey, something I rarely did, and sat in my chair. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. Thank you for your courage. We both deserved better. Yes, I typed back. We did. The months that followed were difficult but necessary. The divorce was uncontested. My wife knew she had no moral ground to stand on. Jennifer and I remained in touch, supporting each other through the process. Not romantically. We'd both had our fill of that kind of complication. But as friends who understood a unique kind of pain. I told my children, both in their late 20s now, the truth. They were devastated, angry, and confused. Their relationship with their mother would take years to repair, if it ever fully did. But they were adults, capable of processing complex truths. 6 months after that terrible night, I stood in my renovated house. I'd changed nearly everything, unable to live surrounded by memories that now felt tainted. I'd started seeing a therapist, joined a gym, reconnected with old friends. I was building a new life from the ashes of the old one. My wife, I heard through mutual friends, moved in with Evan briefly after his divorce was finalized. But their relationship, built on deception and the thrill of the forbidden, couldn't survive in the harsh light of day. It fell apart within weeks. She was alone now, living in a small apartment, working the same job but without the life she'd taken for granted. Did I feel vindicated? Sometimes. Did I feel sad? Often. Did I regret how I'd handled it? Never. Because that night, when I'd said tell Evan I said hi, I'd taken back my power. I'd refused to be the oblivious husband, the convenient excuse for someone else's bad behavior. I'd chosen truth over comfortable ignorance, and while the truth had been agonizing, it had also set me free. I was 51 years old, starting over. But I was starting over with my integrity intact, with the knowledge that I'd handled betrayal with strength rather than weakness. And somehow, standing in my new kitchen, watching the sunset through windows that had never witnessed my wife's lies, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope.